Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire to Inspire. This show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am so excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 106. If you haven't tuned into my last episode, 105, I definitely encourage you to do so. Last episode was one that really filled my cup, and it was all about what if it could turn out better than you could have ever imagined. What a powerful mindset to hold on to whenever we're embarking on a new journey or are nervous to take a leap of faith, is to just hold that mindset of faith of what if this turns out better than I could have ever imagined. So I definitely encourage you to check out that episode. But for today, we are going to be diving into some mental health trauma-informed related conversations. And so for today, we are going to be chatting about why you can't seem to regulate your nervous system. And this is something that I used to hear all the time from my clients of saying, you know, some of these tips just don't work for me and some of these grounding things aren't working for me. Why do you think that they're not working? And this is something I've seen time and time again. And I've also had to learn this for myself. So these are also some things that I've had to kind of give myself grace for, as well of why sometimes it seems like our body is constantly fighting against us, even though we're trying all the things that society tells us to do, right? So common things that we typically hear when it comes down to calming down our nervous system is deep breathing. Take some deep breaths. You'll be okay. Do the box breathing. Do like different grounding techniques such as the 5-4-3-2-1 method, which is where you identify 5 things you see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Sorry, that took me a little longer to go through. I don't have it right in front of me. But there's just these different techniques that we like to use to try to calm our nervous system and to activate our vagus nerve. And so today's episode is really about how we can get back into our parasympathetic nervous system. So if you've never heard that word before and you've just heard the word nervous system, basically just know that our nervous system controls pretty much our whole body. It is really the central part that monitors everything and takes control of everything. But we have 2 different types of nervous systems. We have our parasympathetic, we have our sympathetic nervous system. Our sympathetic nervous system is the one that is going to, so that is your parasympathetic is kind of your rest and digest state, right? That is like you're able to feel safe in your body again. And your sympathetic nervous system is what is activated whenever we are in a state of overwhelm, of overdrive, of stress. Our stress response is triggered and we're just feeling like we can't seem to calm our body down. And so this is super important to know because I think folks don't realize that we have these different types of nervous systems that affect us. If we've had a horrendous childhood, or if we've been in a domestic violence situation, we've undergone just a lot of trauma repetitively, our body might be actively in a state of sympathetic nervous system, meaning our body's in a constant state of fight, flight, and freeze. And when that happens, our body has a harder time resting. It has a harder time digesting our food. Our heart is working so much harder than it has to. Our mind is often foggy, and there's really just a disconnect between our mind and our body because at one point in time, it wasn't safe to be in our body. And so what our mind and body does is it kind of pulls that ripcord. If you can imagine basically a connection between your mind and your body that almost gets turned off. And it gets turned off on purpose because it's your mind's way of saying, I don't want you to be present in your body for this experience because it's likely not enjoyable. It's likely something overwhelming, something disastrous, something horrendous that just shouldn't happen, right? We see this all the time in sexual assault cases, in domestic violence cases, car accidents, natural disasters, things that are just so overwhelming for your mind. And the definition of trauma is anything that exceeds one's ability to cope. So anytime we go into that trauma response, aka our sympathetic nervous system, our body is working so much harder to protect us. And so if we're trying all these grounding techniques, but our body is still in that state of overdrive, it's going to almost feel like we're fighting against our body. And that is when I would have clients that would hold on to immense shame of feeling like I've tried everything and nothing is working for me. And again, this is in no way a replacement for going to psychotherapy, getting the proper support one-on-one if you are in a spot where you're needing more of assistance with that. Definitely know that this is not a replacement for that, but I'm just here to provide education and share based on experiences that I've seen within myself, as well as with working with hundreds of clients in this field. So coming back to our parasympathetic nervous system, that is when we are in our body. We feel grounded. Our heart rate is going at a normal pace. Our mind is back online. We're in our body. We're able to feel grounded and feel centered. But even though we might be in our parasympathetic nervous system, we might still feel like we're having a hard time regulating. We're feeling just a little off. We're feeling anxious. We're feeling dissociative, whatever it is. And we're just still not feeling great about things. And so my goal of today is to share 3 reasons why this might be happening, why this might be happening to you, or why this might be happening to someone you know. But before I dive into those, I encourage you to thank yourself for wanting to learn more. To learn more about your body and your brain is something that I think is very rare. And so if you are looking to deepen your understanding of trauma and of your experiences and mental health in general, I just want to applaud you and thank you for being here, because I know that it can be a scary first step to make. So I hope you just give yourself grace for that. And in tandem with that, I hope that you also know that there is no shame here. I hope you know that this is a place to feel safe and to know that if you are struggling with this, there is no shame. If you are struggling with this, that means that you have likely gone through some stuff and your body is responding out of that. Our bodies respond in a way that tries to protect us because it's scared that we're going to get hurt again. It doesn't want to get hurt again. So it's almost like putting this armor up of like, hey, this can't affect me anymore. I'm shifting into this state. And so we have to just look at our body and our mind in a way of love, of knowing that they've done everything that they can to get us to where we are. And I always say this, if you are listening right now, you have gotten through 100% of those hard times, of those hard situations. And we might be physically out of them, but they can still be affecting us mentally and physically. And so I hope you know that you are deserving to get the proper care to tend to that and to heal that. But without further ado, let's dive into these 3 reasons why you might be having a hard time regulating your nervous system. So the first one that I see quite often is that you're not actually giving yourself permission to do so. And basically what I mean by that is, if the second that you start to feel anxious or depressed, or you get a flashback, or you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling dissociative, whatever, if you kind of just want to judge it and push it away, kind of forcing it in a way to go away because you don't want to feel it, it will likely get worse. Right? I use the analogy all the time of like a hydraulic press. Imagine that, but with our emotions. If we are constantly putting our emotions into this pressure chamber, if you will, and never letting any out, it's just constantly gonna be on the urge of overwhelming, of erupting, of becoming too much because there's too much pressure there. Our bodies are the exact same way, and that is typically when we see, mental breakdowns and panic attacks and all these things. And of course, there's 100 other reasons, but because our body has just taken so much on, and if we don't take the time to consciously tend to it, it will force you in a way. And I'm having a really, really hard week personally, going through some stuff, and I've been having severe chest pain. When I breathe, it's really hard to breathe. I can feel it in my chest, in my stomach, and my back. And a part of me wanted to go to the hospital because I was like, what is going on? But then a part of my trauma-informed brain goes, Jessie, I think this is just severe anxiety showing up in your body. It's your body's way of communicating with you that there's some real stuff going on, there's some real emotions going on, and you need to kind of tend to me and listen to me and just know that this is my way of communicating that with you. And now, of course, you know your body best. You know if something is wrong. That is intuitively what I felt was coming up, is that I'm just feeling anxious and I'm going through some stuff, and that's okay. But if I had just suppressed that and ignored it and pretended it didn't exist and kept ignoring my emotions, kept ignoring my feelings, that pain can actually get a lot worse and can lead to severe health issues. Because the more that our sympathetic nervous system is activated, meaning we're ignoring our things, we're suppressing them, we're not tending to them, we're not healing them, we can actually become chronically ill. We can get really, really sick, and we see this all the time. And I also see this all the time with clients now that are doing the work. When they start to do the work and they start to heal, I can almost predict when they're going to get sick, because our body has been in that overdrive state for so long. And as we heal and we kind of come back and forth, our nervous system gets shaken up a little bit in a way. And the way that we kind of release that is to be sick, to get a fever, to increase our heart rate, to do all those things, to sweat it out. And so it's normal in a way to be feeling this way. But again, that is my first reason of why you might be having a hard time regulating your nervous system, is because every time that you're starting to feel something, you just suppress it. And if we're suppressing it, we're not allowing it the space that it needs to heal. Because if something is coming up, it's coming up for a reason. And I do just want to preface that if you've never had a safe space to feel your emotions or to share your emotions, of course this one's probably going to be really hard. And so this is the time that I encourage you to find a therapist, to find a counselor, find someone that you know and trust that you can talk to heal these things, because it can and will get better, but we have to be willing to face these things head on slowly. Slowly is the key word anytime we're healing. It is not a sprint to the end. It is a slow walk, noticing what's coming up and healing it as we go. So that is the first thing. The second thing is that your environment, your situation, your relationship, your job, your whatever is staying the same. And it's likely been in that environment that something is overwhelming you. Because the thing is that we can heal, but if all the circumstances that are around us and in our body are the same, we will continue to be in a state of fight, flight, and freeze. Let's say, for example, you're in a domestic violence relationship and you're going to therapy to heal. Then when you go home, it's the same thing over again. Your body is never getting the chance to heal. And I know that that is a very top level example to give, but really I want you to be thinking about yourself. Even if it's a friendship, let's say there's a friendship that's really overwhelming you, you feel toxic, you feel icky, you don't feel your best self when you're there, but yet you stay in that friendship. I know exactly what it's like to not know where to turn, to feel alone, helpless, and stuck. My goal as a coach is to help clients from a trauma-informed perspective see your worth and develop self-belief so you may chase your dreams and trust your intuition to live the most aligned, fulfilling life possible. If you're looking to elevate your life to the next level but aren't sure where to start, I would absolutely love to connect. If you're feeling pulled or curious, please use the link in the show notes below to book your free call. I look forward to connecting and supporting you on your own unique journey. You're always going to be feeling those same feelings. We often have to remove ourselves from the environments, the physical things, so that we can heal within. And I know that that can be hard, and that's a very situational thing. And again, reach out to somebody if you're needing support with this. But it's really hard to regulate our nervous system if everything around us is kind of staying the same. If we are the only one that is changing, but everything around us is staying, the same and is acting the same, it's going to be really, really hard for us to heal. I see this all the time, or I guess I've seen this all the time when I would have clients whose partners weren't willing to grow, but they were growing. Every time they would go back to that environment, they would kind of fall into the same patterns, right? I've seen this all the time with folks that would go to rehab. They would go, they would do their detox, they would be ready to embark on this new sober life, but then they would go back to their same communities and they would likely fall back into the same patterns. Why? Because their environment was setting them up to feel and experience the same things over and over and over again. So I know that that one can be really hard because it often leads to us feeling lonely, feeling isolated, feeling unsure of what to do. But we need to know that if we want to regulate our nervous system, we have to identify the persons, places, things, and ideas that are causing us to stay in that state of sympathetic nervous system in a fight, flight, and freeze constantly. So that is number 2. Number 3, your nervous system is like a muscle. Just like when you go to the gym or when you work out or when you do whatever to work your muscles, your muscles start to get stronger, right? And the thing about our nervous system and our brain, it's the exact same thing. The more that we train it and the more that we, take time to heal it and work on it and practice grounding techniques and do things over and over and over again, our mind will slowly start to rewire and heal itself. I read this quote that I really liked. It said, "Trauma changes the brain, but so does healing." And that stuck out to me just so beautifully because I'm like, wow, I know exactly what that feels like. Trauma really does change the brain, but so does healing. But the thing is that, we get frustrated with is that sometimes traumatic experiences happen like that. They can happen very fast. They can happen unexpectedly, but the healing journey is what takes time. And so we almost want to snap out of it the same way that it kind of came into our life. But we have to know that that takes time because, again, when we shift into that fight, flight, freeze, our brain goes offline. It's going to take time to rewire what it was that happened during that time. Our brain's trying to figure it out and process it so we can store it properly. Again, I always use the movie Inside Out when you see like the balls of her memories in her brain. If you haven't seen that movie, 10 out of 10 recommend. I know it's supposed to be a child's movie, but honestly, it is one of the most psychological neuroscience amazing movies that allows you to make it make sense things out there. It's just the cutest thing ever. And I always hear in my head like bing bong, if you know what I'm talking about. I love you. If you don't, you have to watch the movie. It's the best. But basically, it's her mind's way of storing all those memories properly. Because if we don't store them properly, they're constantly going to cycle, right? I always used to say to my clients, it's like a DVD. It's going to keep skipping. If you remember a DVD when it would get a scratch on it, it would just keep skipping at the same part. It's because there's something there. There's a block. And whenever we've experienced something and we shift into that sympathetic state of fight, flight, freeze, where it's almost like we're getting a scratch in a way on our DVD, on our brain, on our memory. And so our brain is processing it and playing it over and over again, aka coming out as flashbacks, as panic attacks, as anxiety, as mood, I want to say disorders, but I'm talking very low scale here, not like a chronic mood disorder. But our mood is just fluctuating a lot. We're out of our window of tolerance. And that's because our mind is trying to process all this information in a way, but we have to give ourselves grace of knowing that it's like a muscle. It's going to take time. The reason that you might not be able to regulate your nervous system is because you actually are more than you think, but because you haven't instantly felt better, you feel like nothing's happening. But just know that the more that you do the work consistently and you keep showing up and you keep grounding yourself and you keep going to therapy or you keep doing things that work for you, slowly over time, your nervous system will start to get stronger. It'll get more receptive. Exposure therapy is one of the best things that we can do when we're a little bit into our journey and we feel safe to do so, because we're able to tell our brain like, hey, this is safe to do again. Like, I know it didn't for a long time and I'm sorry you had to experience that, but we get to enjoy this thing again. Let's just see how it goes. And so that is number 3, the third reason why you might not be able to regulate your nervous system. But within all of these, the beautiful thing is that we have the power to change all those. These aren't like neurological things that we don't have control of. Sometimes it's just giving ourselves that grace and permission of sticking with it for a little bit longer. We haven't gotten to that place where we felt that shift yet. So of course it just feels like we've done all this work and nothing has happened. I had this one client that I can think of so clearly. I worked with him for 2 years. And for the first year, he's like, nothing is changing. Nothing is happening. And then eventually one day, I'll never forget, I seen this client on Zoom. It was during the pandemic. And he said, I finally get it. I had the first good night's sleep in as long as I can remember. And just listed off all these things that were going so good. And I'm like, part of my brain's like, yes. It can happen. It will happen, but it takes time, and all of our timestamps are different. We all have different adaptability and resiliencies depending on things that we have support of, how we nourish our body, how we're showing up. It's all circumstantial and it's individualized, but just know that you can and will heal, but you just have to give yourself that permission. Notice the things in your environment that are not serving you and are forcing you in a way to stay in that state, and just give yourself permission to feel your emotions and to regulate them. So I truly hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. This stuff is definitely up my jam. There was a question posted in Next Level Nation, which is Next Level University's Facebook page, and they put, what, if you could give a keynote speech for 30 minutes on one thing, what would it be? And I'm like, this would honestly be the thing that I would talk about. Regulating our nervous system, our parasympathetic versus our sympathetic, what happens to our mind, what happens to our body, how we can start to get that connection back online. So if you guys enjoy content like this, I definitely encourage you to come back, because this is honestly my favorite thing to talk about. I've been thinking about some guests I want to have on the show, and I would really like to interview a neuroscientist at some point to just talk about the brain and like how it works and the coolness that is our brain. So thank you guys so much as always. If you're looking to connect, as always, my link is in the description below to book a free 30-minute call with me. I would absolutely love to connect with you guys, get to know you better, and see if and how I can support you on your own unique journey. So thank you guys so much. I look forward to chatting with y'all next week. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.